For this stop on our South Central tour, we're in Ada at the home of Steve and Nancy Cody, and Nancy is going to show us around their garden. Hey Nancy, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Glad to be a part of it.
You have a beautiful place here, and one of the really unique elements, I think, of your property is this grove of Rose of Sharon.
Yes.
These really old plants here. You can tell that they've been well taken care of, and when you guys came in here, I guess you cleaned these up a bit?
Yes. They were still basically a tree feature, but the branches were lower. They came down, swooped down to the ground, so we kind of picked that up so that you can see through it. And that was about the only tree we had in this backyard besides the large pecan behind us. So it was blooming when we looked at it, beautiful purple bloom, so that was a plus. Okay. One of the few in this yard at that point.
Okay. Those flowering trees are always good to have in the garden.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We call that pruning sometimes, giving them some legs. And of course, with the Rose of Sharon, the flowers only last one day, but there's so many that are produced. You get the flower color pretty much throughout the summer. So how long have you guys lived at this place?
8 years.
8 years?
We moved here 8 years ago in June, and fortunately saw the potential. The backyard was not much. As a matter of fact, the lady who built the house said one of the reasons she moved is she could not manage the yard.
Oh no.
so we started tackling it bit by bit. But this was here, and this was a wonderful feature, as you say.
Okay, well worth preserving.
Yes.
Well, it is an interesting property, the way it slopes from the back down to the front. You got quite a bit of an elevation change, but you guys have done some really neat things with this area. Well, right over here is kind of a neat thing, this large sandstone boulder that you've got a little area that looks like it's been carved out, or is that kind of natural?
Right. Well, we lived on a ranch for 30 years before we moved here, and Steve, we have a lot of rocks on the ranch. Fortunately, not the whole place is, but there are rocky areas, and he found this rock, and it has that natural curved out area. It's probably 3 or 4 inches deep, and so he managed to get that here and in place, and I planted it with some begonias, and it's really a nice feature, I think.
Okay, you got the New Guinea impatient in there this year. Well, I noticed out front you have another boulder with a planting area. That also come from the ranch?
It did. It was they had to move that in with a sledge. It was so large. And so we didn't take it all the way here to the back, but I wanted it down by what we call the creek, and it had a natural hollowed out place and not much area for soil, not as much as this one. So we decided to put some succulents in there, and they managed beautifully. Okay,
something that will handle that shallow depth of soil.
Right.
Okay. Well, you do have quite a bit of yard ornamentation, and very tastefully done and placed, I must say. And right over here, I think this is really neat. The flamingo here in the backyard, and also see that you have a small flock of flamingos out in the front.
Those someone
are really,
gave
really
me
nice.
A flamingo once as a joke, thinking it was rather tacky. And I thought, well, I'll just show them, and we decided to start collecting those and placing those around. And so I have some, I think, really interesting and unique ones, and so I'm glad to be able to display those.
I think it's a great variation on the flamingo theme.
Yes,
they look very
the plastic
tasteful.
Flamingo. Yeah.
Okay. Well, here your lawn is an area that you guys are working on, and in some of the spots in the back, you've got the St. Augustine grass, something that a lot of us in the northern part of the state don't see that much, and this St. Augustine is filling in, and I see back here you're working on getting in the fescue turf in this spot, working on getting that established, and you've got the edging in place there to keep those separated, and it'll be interesting, and I think look really good once those have completely filled in. You've got that little separation of turf here in the backyard. Have you been pleased with the St. Augustine?
Very much so. This is a variation called Raleigh St. Augustine, and Steve visited with a landscaper in Texas who suggested this particular kind of St. Augustine that would do well this far north. You do have to keep it watered, even in the winter. That's a key thing. Plus, it needs some sun.
Okay.
So it's worked real well under this pecan tree.
Okay, so the Raleigh cultivar variety of St. Augustine, great more cold tolerant
Yes,
variety.
yes,
Well, back to your art theme, and
yes.
I really like some of these pieces that you have around your property out front. You've got the little concrete-looking garden head. How did you put that together?
Well, I'm a master gardener and was in the first class they had here in Ada, and we do projects occasionally. And one of our workshops last fall was to make hypertufa grots. And some people made benches, some made pots, but I saw the little faces, which really intrigued me. So I decided I would make those, and the one I have is the first one I made, which I didn't think was as good as the others. And I gave the 3 others away at Christmas. And I'm happy to say that the recipients were quite thrilled, and I've been asked to make more.
All right. Okay. Well,
But I do love the hypertufa grots.
I imagine your friends would be that got those. I like the one that you have out there on the rock. And right back here, you've got a neat thing you've made with like an old charred piece of a tree, an old stump there.
That too came from our ranch. We have a lake down there, a rather large lake, and that happened to come floating to the top. It had been burned, obviously, and it's basically petrified. And we used it as a sculpture, but at first you didn't notice it as much. And so this year I added the gazing ball on top of that to try to draw attention not to the gazing ball, but to the trunk. And it has worked. People have noticed it a lot more.
I think it's a really neat piece of art for the garden.
Thank
We've
you.
also got some interesting plants back here. I see a variegated form of the Virginia creeper, one of our native vines,
Yes.
and a plant that's usually a little bit slow to get established, but yours are doing quite well. They look very healthy, and I love that variegated foliage. Well, let's take a look at one other area over here on the east side of your property.
Okay, thank you.
Well, Nancy, I really like the terrace here. It gives you a nice sunny overlook onto the lower part of your property.
Yes.
And the floor of the area is a really neat style. This is pretty simple to put together, and you had some help doing this?
Well, actually, this was a birthday present
Oh.
to me. My 60th birthday was in June, and when I came home from a visit on the East Coast, he had this ready for me. He and his ranch hand Mark put this together, so it was very delightful.
All right. Well, this is pretty simple to put together. You just level up the area, put down the flagstone, and just take some bags of powdered cement and just kind of pour those into the cracks, kind of maybe sweep it into the cracks a little bit more, and then just wet it down and sets up naturally, and you have a neat rustic floor for a terrace.
Yes.
Well, the rock that you've got kind of making a retaining wall at the back of the terrace and again here in the front is really unique. It almost looks like it's been worked a little bit. Where did this rock come from?
Well, we have a ranch, as I mentioned, about 30 minutes from here, and there was an old schoolhouse there called the Globe Schoolhouse that was built in the 30s, and we used it for a hay barn for years, and then it burned, within the last 10 years or so, and so we decided we could use the rock in landscaping here at the house and bring a little bit of the ranch to the city.
Well, it is a unique touch that you were able to add to your garden here, and I really like the way you've used this rock on the beds out front.
Yes.
The way you just kind of carved those raised beds into that sloping area really looks nice, and a great way to take advantage of that sloping area in your
Right.
garden and create those little planting spots.
Yes, that my husband designed those beds, and I'm very pleased with them.
Well, he did a good job, and they look really nice. Well, Nancy, thank you so much
You're
for
so welcome.
showing us around.
Oh, you bet.